Good morning, everyone. My name is Gonzalo Anyosa, and I'm a former mentee of our interviewee, Dan King. Dan and I worked together for a year at the Broad Institute. Dan, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hey, Gonzalo. I'm Dan King. I'm a software engineer at the Broad Institute, and I run the Hail team. And we're a group of software engineers working on a set of tools for analyzing really large genetic data sets. Yeah.
I see that you're a software engineer working in what some might call an unusual area. What would you call your current profession?
It's an interesting question. I mean, I guess these days it's manager, for better or worse. But I suppose I think of myself as a software engineer, but working in sort of computational biology or working in genetics, or statistical genetics more specifically. I think like to do this kind of like modern computational biology or statistical genetics requires a lot of different expertises coming together and working collaboratively on a problem. So, you know, in the NEAL lab, which the Hail team is a part of, there's usually, we have project managers that are ensuring that these large sequencing projects, like all of the different samples don't get lost and that they get to the sequencers and then they get into the hands of scientists. Then you have people who are like experts on statistics, sort of thinking about statistical problems. You have people with a lot of biology knowledge and backgrounds in psychology or sociology or, in more traditional biological backgrounds, kind of helping to interpret the results. And then you have people like me who are kind of building the software that's necessary to, kind of search through very large data sets of genomes.
So, who uses Hail? Is it only used within the NEAL lab? And what is the impact of Hail in the scientific community?
Yeah, that's a great question. So definitely our primary users are a group called ATGU, which is a statistical genetics group at the Broad Institute and also at Mass General Hospital. But our code is open source and we develop everything kind of in the open, so anybody can go and download it and use it. And in fact, it's widely used in the statistical genetics community. In fact, it's probably, the only, I think it's fair to say that Hail is like the only option you have if you're working with really, really large genetic data sets. There's just not a lot of other choices available for working with such large data. So we have collaborators in Finland. We've got collaborators all across the United States, collaborators in Africa. I'm sure there are lots of collaborators in China. Oh, and there's a big group in Australia that's now using Hail as well.
All right. So, what are these researchers around the world trying to understand? What problem are they trying to solve?
Sure. There's a lot of different ways that Hail gets used by people with different goals. At the end of the day, what everybody's trying to do is sort of alleviate the burden of human disease, right? So for some people, that means looking at diabetes, which is a common disease, meaning that it's widespread, like lots of people have diabetes, unfortunately. And the genetics of diabetes are complex and sort of what we would call polygenic, meaning there's many parts of the genome that are all coming together and influencing a person to get diabetes. That's different from something from what's called rare disease, which is something like fatal familial insomnia, where you get like kind of a one gene gets broken, and as a result, in the case of fatal familial insomnia, eventually you stop sleeping and then you die because your body is not functioning properly. So that's kind of very different, because with the rare disease, you're looking for a needle in a haystack. There's this one problem somewhere on your genome that explains the entire disease, which is different from something like diabetes or even more complicated like schizophrenia, where there's lots and lots of little things that are kind of switched the wrong way to cause the disease. The goal sort of is to understand what causes a disease using genetics as our way to understand it. Because if a certain gene is the thing that's causing the disease, maybe we know what that gene does. Maybe it's really associated to ion channels or something else. And then we can talk with our experimental friends who will then do follow-up studies and eventually develop drugs, or there's a growing movement to actually fix the genetic problems by doing some kind of gene editing. But that's much newer, and I don't know as much about that.
What is this field of study called? What is the science of associating genes to diseases called?
Right. That I think would be called statistical genetics. The process of associating changes in the genome to diseases, that is statistical genetics. That's the heart and essence of it.
When I first heard you mention statistical genetics, I was a bit confused. Thank you for clearing that up. So let's travel back in time. So how did this happen? How did Dan King end up working in the HALE team?
Yeah, it was a winding road. I did my undergraduate degree in computer science and physics at Northeastern, which is a university in Boston. And I thought I wanted to be a professor. So I started doing a PhD in computer science, and I didn't like it. I really didn't like it. So I quit after 2 years, and I was working at some startup that does, it works on clinical trial software. And while I was there, I heard about this open position on the HALE team, and I didn't really understand what I was getting myself into. Mostly, I was really excited about working with Cotton, who used to be my boss. Cotton sees this like really, he's a really great software engineer, very talented, also a talented mathematician. And I wanted to work with him. I knew that I would learn a lot from him. So that's why I joined. And then, now I've been there for 5 years, and now I took Cotton's job, and he's on leave right now. And it really was sort of a slow transformation from not really caring about biology into thinking that this is actually much more interesting and cool than a lot of the other software engineering that I've done. And I especially like that I have an impact on disease.
During your time in college or during your time in grad school, what was your experience with biology?
So before I started working at the Broad, I had not taken a biology class since high school. I had to learn all of my biology while I was at the Broad, like trying to do biology. It was crazy.
How did you learn all of that biology? Most students just learn biology and use this knowledge to ace their biology tests. But how did you manage to simultaneously learn biology and put it to practice? Did you take any classes, or how did you teach yourself biology?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think I still have a lot to learn. Some people that I've worked with took Eric Lander's biology, I think it's an edX class on biology, and they really liked that. I just asked a lot of questions at the lab meetings that we had. So I was the guy that was always asking the really, really dumb questions that revealed how little I knew. But I learned a lot from doing that. And I learned a lot from working with scientists and helping them. I was kind of bringing my software engineering knowledge and helping them solve these problems that they had. But in the process of doing that, I had to learn enough biology to talk to them. The most effective way for me to learn has been to try and do something, not do it correctly, make a mistake, and then learn from that mistake.
Have you ever found yourself in a position where you have had to go to a conference, share your work, and act like you know everything about biology? Has that ever happened to you?
I went to the American Society of Human Genetics conference when it was in Vancouver, I think like 4 years ago. And we had a poster presentation about HALE. And yeah, no, it was very awkward because I was there telling people they should use HALE and how great HALE was, but I really didn't know that much about biology. And then I also went to another conference that was mostly software engineers, and I had to tell them about biology. I was the expert on biology, telling all these software engineers about biology, which was also very weird. I actually found that preparing for the poster and preparing for that talk, I learned a lot about biology because I had to, in order to be able to explain something, like teaching something to somebody, you learn it so much better than you had ever learned it before.
So as you know, I started working with you as part of the Broad Summer Scholars Program. Through this program, I have made many meaningful connections, not only with you, but with other researchers at the Broad as well. I feel like this has helped me immensely, and I was wondering why you decided to participate in this program. What motivated you to sign up as a mentor?
I have always enjoyed teaching. Actually, that was the thing I liked the most about grad school. So that's part of why I got involved, is I just really enjoy teaching. And I think actually working with students is really exciting because students like you bring a lot of energy, and it's fun to watch somebody learn something because you get to participate vicariously in the excitement and the joy of learning something new. And I don't know, I guess when you get older, you don't get to learn new things as much. So it's nice to be able to vicariously experience that. I think it's really important to make sure that everybody gets an opportunity to participate in science. There's a long history of science sort of being done by white dudes mostly, and that has led to like a lot of problems. I think in genetics, the field that I work in, most of our studies are studying people of European ancestry, and those studies are not going to be as useful for people that aren't of European ancestry. And I think that that is really bad. That's like a moral failing of our institution, of the system of science. It's like really important to make sure that everybody gets access to that. And I guess I see the BSSP program and also the Broad's other program, the BSRP program, as an opportunity for me to do my part in making sure that everybody gets a chance to experience science and be a part of it. I think it's important for everybody to be able to do science themselves, not to just see it, but to be a part of it.
So you briefly talked about this bias in science, and I believe that the projects we worked on were tools that could be used on very diverse populations, and therefore reducing this bias. How else do you think Hale addresses this bias in science?
I would like to think that's true. We're doing a very small thing. We go out of our way to find methods and tools that are useful for people who are looking at sort of non-European ancestries. And we try to make them available within Hale, which just makes it easier for people to do that research. But we're a very small drop in the bucket, I think.
Wow, thank you, Dan. I think that is all. Thank you so much for answering my questions and sharing a little bit about your work. It was really interesting to hear about your story and how you got into biology. I hope this interview helped some of you out there. Dan, do you have any last thoughts?
Biology is really exciting. I don't think I realized that when I was in high school. So I hope everybody listening gets excited about biology and gets involved. There's a lot of opportunities to do internships. It's been the most fun I've had, I think, in my entire life. Have been the last 5 years. So I encourage everybody to jump in.